think we're talking enough that we should put it in a podcast again. And then you got the camera, and here we are.
We were some fresh-faced boys.
Yes.
And
You didn't have the
more
curls.
hair on my beard and none of it on my head.
It felt like an adventure.
I can hear the music playing in my head.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Button. I'm one of your hosts, Alejandro. With me is the Rain Man.
Paul, hey everybody, how's it going?
How's the rain, Paul? Because apparently it's like pouring now over you where you are, right?
So it's finally stopped now, and the sun's back out, but it was really coming down at least once a day this week. It's fine in the morning, and then it lets loose, and then it's done.
Ours has switched to night. So night rains are my favorite because then you can sleep really well. So,
True.
But other than that, how's life?
It's hot still, and I got to sink my teeth into a few things that I didn't expect I would enjoy, and I'm excited to talk about it. Alejandro, anything, going on different for you?
Nothing much different. I just can't wait for August because it feels like right now we're like in this really quiet period, just in general. That I will have like games to play, games to talk about. We're gonna get some news, and then in my personal life, my life may go through some changes also. So I just can't wait for August. But until then, we can escape for a little bit into this nonsense because this is the X Button, our gaming podcast that posts every Thursdays from 2 p.m. onwards, God willing. Available on the YouTube channel Escape Media, as well as most audio services around the world, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. You can find links in the RSS feed at anchor.fm/escape-media. If you enjoy our show, give us a like and subscribe. Paul, hit me. You don't have much that you have to talk there. What have you been playing?
Well, start off, I played more of the games that I mentioned last week, but I'm not going to mention them here because it's more of the same, basically. I played more of Spiritfarer, and then that one I wanted to mention specifically how much I enjoy the concept of a boat in a world full of water, and you get to just kind of set the button to go, and then you can sit back and enjoy the view. I think some of my favorite games lately have allowed me to do that, from the Wind Waker, Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and lately with this one, Spiritfarer, where you can just set the cruise control essentially on the boat, and then you get to do whatever you want or just chill out and
build things in the boat, chill with the people you're taking.
You get to fish. It's a good time all around, and I realized how much I miss that feeling of being able to just press a button and then sit back. And then I'm going to talk more about that concept with another game later on, but I really like that feeling, and I wish that there was like a space game that let me do that more. Elite Dangerous kind of does it, but I just want
No Man's Sky?
It does actually do that, but that one's like there's so much active flying in that there's not really that, all right, let's just sit here and cruise. Then I played Metroid Dread again.
Yeah. So why? Because you made it very clear that this game, like, you were so salty about how it ended that you didn't even want to consider it for anything when we rewarded like the best of 2021. So was it the rookie mode?
Definitely, because at first I forgot that I hadn't updated the game or my software in a while because I haven't touched my Switch in a minute. So I did that.
It has nothing, so I don't blame you.
Yeah. I was traveling to my wife's father's house, and her little sister, who's 7, has her own Nintendo Switch. So she was playing that, and I got to bond with her, and that was really nice. So while she played that, I pulled that up, and I was like, what's something that I can just kind of play in the background, but I can pick up and put down easily? Because it was between that or like Fire Emblem, and I was like, I need to sit down and really like focus on that, so that's not an option.
Yeah.
So Metroid, and I was like, I haven't touched the rookie mode, let's just see how that feels. And after downloading the new update and everything, I realized that it was fantastic. Just that, I think, should have absolutely been the default difficulty that people start on, especially with so many people being introed to the series here. There needed to be an easier way to kind of onboard people, I think. But we've all talked about that in our 3-part Metroid Dread talk, so listen to that there. But yeah, just
but let's just say, like, it was like I'm glad that Mercury's team agreed. Because remember,
Yeah.
like all those snobs that say, "No, it has to like Metroid has to remain pure," blah blah blah, and then me going on that
That's
like whole
garbage.
Metroid
And
binge of
then
the
when you
old games.
found out that the
There
old
used to be
games
an
had an easy mode, I was
yeah,
like, "Ooh, we got it."
yes, exactly.
So yeah, I'm really glad that it's there, and it's still a challenge. It's not like a
Mhm.
cakewalk at all. Just like I said, I think word for word when I played the easy mode of Sifu, it's just that's what you get to really have fun with when you're
Mhm.
playing the game, and I got to understand things, and I realized how much prerequisite knowledge you have to have of the series to understand where they want you to go.
The
Because now
language,
that I understood it,
yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, cool, that's a wall, let me go. They want me to go elsewhere rather than, oh my goodness, they're not letting me explore, because I thought it was a different kind of game back when I played it. But
Mhm.
once again, that's elsewhere. But lastly, and the biggest thing was playing through, finally, upon popular review and suggestion from you and Zach,
Uh-huh.
somehow, both of you agreeing, Assassin's Creed Origins. I went back.
Yeah.
And man, did I discredited the heck out of this game back in
I told
2017.
you. And also, it's so funny because it's like, did you mention our friend Zach? Like, it seems like he just is in a completely different wavelength about the kinds of games he could like
Well, he
versus like
just
the
has a
ones.
different priority set, and that's just
Exactly.
one of
So,
the cool things that somehow we all gel with certain things, but each of us have very different approaches to games and
mhm.
very different interests in those games.
But you and I, like, I feel like we can connect more. Like, we tend to have similar tastes.
Yeah, for the most part. Zach's a little bit better on his artistic focus and a lot of the other things that he's interested in. Interesting accessory choice.
Yes,
Looking
those
like
glasses
Brad
just,
Pitt with
yeah,
your sunglasses.
the sunglasses just dropped out of nowhere. So continue.
um, and here I thought somebody handed them to you.
Mhm.
Okay, so yeah, just with what we're interested in, you and I usually a little more on the agreement side of things. Even when we don't agree, that's where we get our best discussions.
Mhm.
But somehow you started this trend where you went back to visit several different series, and then
Mhm.
you started singing the praises of Origins. You started making screenshots of it and sharing it in the chat,
Mhm.
and you were really hyping up like a lot of the stuff that I either like glossed over or didn't
Mhm.
experience, or just like I felt like I was grading like sandpaper against it at the time. And granted, 2017 was like probably one of the worst years for me with gaming, and I know it was maybe not
Sort
the
of
same
similar,
with,
but
yeah,
not the
but
same.
you were building up to it by the time 2018, as we know with your
Mhm.
recent renaissance with God of War,
Mhm.
in that. So I was in a similar situation, and I tried playing it. That was the first time they departed from the old school system, and I just hated it. I hated
Mhm.
everything about it. It felt clunky. I was using the lock-on feature, which I realized um, I didn't really need it as much. I really Ghost of Tsushima'd it, where you
Mhm.
just kind of aim in that direction, and then that's where they attack.
Yeah.
Um, I have been basically only dodging and not
Mhm.
blocking anything, so I can see how they probably saw that and said, "Oh, people don't need shields for
There
the
you go.
next game."
There you go.
And
That's why they
it,
didn't have it there
I
in
understand
Odyssey.
it. It just still frustrates me that they picked the culture that built their entire culture around shields and then said, "No, we're not going to include shields at all for the main character," which I really thought at least like a spear and shield combo, like combo weapon, would have been awesome. But at least they fixed it for Valhalla. Anyway, to go back on it, I definitely just did not give this game a chance, and I'm so glad that I was wrong on it, and I'm so glad that y'all convinced me to go back,
Mhm.
because I burned through that game, picked it up where I left off, which was pretty deep into the story, and I
Mhm.
still felt like I didn't miss too much. I knew how it started, and I really liked the characters between Aya and Bayek
You know
already.
why? You know why it was easier to just go back to it because it was just a simple revenge tale.
It is. There wasn't really a whole lot of like crazy plot or developments in the process, and anything that was either side missions or very self-contained within that mini narrative. And I realized that Ubisoft kind of excels in that pockets of story
Mhm.
side of things, where it's like, okay, once you you have like 3 or 4 options or whatever, and then once you're in there, that's when all of the plot happens, and then that plot is wrapped up, and then it lets you move on to other things. It can not go well sometimes, as we've seen with Breakpoint, but in certain other situations like Far Cry 6, I remember singing its praises because it was a really well self-contained story about these like 3 or 4 extra characters. And Origins kind of plays the same thing to the hilt. And gosh, I don't know how much more I could ramble about it, because I don't want to be here all day rambling about it. I just want to say that it was great. I'm playing through the Hidden Ones DLC. I really liked how it ended, even though I had a couple of concerns about things and the pacing of it here and there. But
so you finished Hidden Ones already?
No. I'm working through it right now because apparently I was like 1 level below the recommended. So my progress was a little slow because I started it and it was like, yeah, it's only like level 39. You're level 36. It's fine because it didn't have the red. And then the enemies were all red when I loaded it up and I went, oh no.
Okay, so then it's probably because I think if you buy Curse of the Pharaohs, it gives you like a level boost that immediately puts you in the level. So
which I didn't buy that one. I'm just not going to touch it.
So Hidden Ones doesn't have that. You have to grind. Okay, that makes sense.
Right. But still, it actually forced me to be stealthy. And even though I couldn't really touch most of the enemies, I had a poison dart. So I killed the target and finally was able to like sneak into the area, confirm the kill, and then get the heck out with a bunch of them on my tail. But I got a ton of XP from it. So it like raised my level to kind of where I needed to be. And so I'm just going to keep playing that. But the last thing I wanted to say was, since Assassin's Creed Brotherhood was like one of my favorites because it included the whole idea of you leading the Assassin's Bureau. That's what I loved that this is so focused on, because that was like my favorite part of that. And so like also the fact that it's very connected to Italy, because obviously Rome is in here. So it's like more connected to that level of Assassin's Creed than I thought. And I really
especially with the end.
Yeah, especially with the end. So yeah, that was just great. A lot of the incorporation of certain historical elements that I was aware of that the story did was really nice, and the gameplay is a lot more fun than I thought. But yeah, that was about it.
Yeah, Assassin's Creed Origins is such a special game, and I'll just say that perfect timing for them patching it to 60 frames, because a lot of people are rediscovering it. And Origins has been the one that, in the context of where the series ended up going after this and then going back, it makes you kind of appreciate some of the ways that they were still reined in before Ubisoft went down the let's just give more content for content's sake. So I think that's what has made Origins. Initially, obviously, I was the same way with you when I played Origins in 2017. I liked it, but I didn't love it because it just felt so different to what I was used to. It wasn't until then I played Odyssey that I kind of finally got into that mindset of, okay, this is what the series is.
I can see how you got stuck on Odyssey and loved it so much, because now I'm like, ooh, I want to finish this and then jump back into Odyssey where I was sitting.
And I tell you, it's like Odyssey, when it clicks, you just go. It's like it's such endless junk food in a way, like in how it doles out its rewards, and just you clearing out the bandit camps and all of that, and also the nutsy version of its story. I like both of these. I still need to get back to Valhalla, but it's just knowing that it's so long that it's like, it makes you, I always try to like knock out all these small things to the side before I just dive into the long one, because I don't want to drop.
Valhalla is really tough with that. I noticed that they like different things where they got a little too lost in the process with Valhalla, because it's so easy in Origins to kind of have intuition about where collectibles and loot are, that it's a lot harder in Valhalla to do that, or it's locked behind something and it's not clear about how to get through. So that I think they just got a little bogged down in the process of their puzzle solving. But the same soul is there. So if it's now clicked with Origins, I kind of just want to like blast through and then see how long that lasts, if I make it through to Valhalla or if I get lost in Odyssey again. And we'll see. But
I still tell you, it's like, at least with Odyssey, I would love for you to play it so you could play the Fate of Atlantis and also the Legacy of the First Blade. because it Legacy of the First Blade ties with Origins. So,
and I have the DLC wishlisted, so the next time they're on sale, I'll pick them up. And I also want to pick up DLC for Valhalla as well, because I want that Siege of Paris, I think. But $25 is a little too pricey.
Yeah, I got all of that and the Dawn of Ragnarok. I have all of it loaded up with Valhalla. I just haven't started. I haven't gone beyond just the first few hours. So
yeah, it's definitely like beat other things first, and then know you're gonna sit down and really try to work your way through it. But
yeah, what I've been playing, Paul, I finished the entire Greek God of Wars, all of them. I replayed that.
It's so impressive how quickly you can beat things, especially last week when we realized that you basically halved the process of getting through Uncharted 1.
Because I know that game.
Alejandro
because I just know
different.
it. It's like 8-9 hours. It makes sense for a game that you don't remember anything at all. I have played that game so often that I know I never get lost. Of I know where I have to jump here. I know how to puzzle solve this. I know how to more efficiently kill all the enemies. So when you're just just rambling around, of course that game's gonna take 7 to 8 hours, but I can beat that in 4 to 5. So I did God of War 1 and 2 through the PS Plus streaming. And well, at least half of God of War 2. Then I kind of switched because I still have my PS3 plugged in. I cloud saved and continued there while I was in my room, and I was like, you know what, I'll just finish them all here because the entire series is here. So I finished all of that. Then I did the Origins collection that includes the PSP games, Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta. And then I did something I usually do different with this replays. I didn't play all of them in release order. Well, I technically did all of them in release order with the exception of 3. I left God of War 3 as the last one that I did in this replay because it's both the one that it's the end of this timeline basically, and also my excuse was that I no longer have that game on PS3. I have it on PS4, so I didn't want to play a remaster that has better bells and whistles and then having to go back to how Ascension looks on PS3 that is locked at 30 at 720p. At the PS4 version is 1080p 60.
So I have a question, real quick. What is actually available for most people through just PlayStation 4 right now?
1 and 2 and Ascension are on PlayStation Plus Premium.
Okay.
As just streaming, and then God of War 3 Remastered is also available there in PlayStation Plus Premium, but because it's a PS4 version, you can download that.
Okay, none of the others were made for native PS4, right?
Only 3 is the one that's PS4 Remastered, which is unfortunate.
Still so weird, but at least I know you were saying that the streaming process was
it worked for me. The more I played them, the thing that I started noticing more that I didn't like is just how grainy it can look. Because I tell you, I played them on PS3, they look so much better because it's a native image.
Yeah.
Versus a stream. I think you can let go. If you've never seen them on PS3 before and you kind of just accept, I'm streaming this, how they look, it's just fine. Because at least it plays well for the kind of game that it is. That it's a quick button mashy action adventure game in that DMC style. That surprisingly works. I tried playing Ratchet & Clank A Crack in Time streaming. Nope. Because you can aim weapons there, and then I was like, they still haven't. When it comes to moving and platforming and attacking, it works fine. But when you're actually now moving and trying to aim weapons, there's that slight delay that maybe some people will get used to it. But I like my precision. But these are all God of War games. I'm just reminded just how much I love button mashers myself. There's just something so calming, quote unquote, about just being able to mash your way through so many enemies, through crazy combos, crazy visuals, crazy ways you kill your enemies there. And those old PS2 games surprisingly really hold well. And in the way some of their art looks, I was telling you that God of War 2 in particular is one that I wish had been done in a PS3 engine, because there's so much inspired art direction in the places you go there, because you travel to the Islands of Fate to meet with the Sisters of Fate, and it takes you down to Tartarus, and then you see things in the distance that has such great art that then I think about it, this was being done on PS2 while the PS3 was already out, and just thinking, man, if they had launched this if God of War 2 had been a PS3 launch game, it could have changed the tide a little bit, because it's God of War at that time was huge. That was the big PS2 series. And the PSP games, Chains of Olympus, I always have a a soft spot because Chains of Olympus was my first God of War game. The one that I rented it for, I mentioned in our favorite games, and God of War Chains of Olympus was like what introduced me to being able to play God of War for the first time, because when 1 or 2 came out, when at the time I was younger, so I wouldn't have been able to like really play them, and they're a little bit more explicit compared to Chains of Olympus. Chains of Olympus is a little bit more toned down, and that's the one that my dad liked. He tried it and he fell in love with it and beat it in like one sitting. And but Ghost of Sparta, the second one that came out on PSP, is like shockingly great in its story. It's probably my favorite story of that era, because it's the one that actually humanizes Kratos in a way, other than the first game, because the first game he's like a tragic anti-hero. Yeah. It's from 2 and on where he's like, Athena! He's always like screaming everything. Because he's just so full of rage. And even Chains of Olympus, even though it's like before God of War 1, they took the personality that they implanted him with 2, so he's still screaming a lot, so he's very one note. And even though he can still scream a lot, just giving you the backstory of his childhood and his brother, and why did he become so angry starting in God of War 2, because when you play God of War 1 and 2 back to back, is like the way you finish God of War 1, where he ends up in a little bit in a bit of a more solemn tone, and then he's just like fully raged up. And
I always did think that was a little weird, because in 2 he starts off, then he's attacking like a city, isn't he?
Yeah, it's the war between
like,
Sparta and yeah, it's like Sparta's invading Rhodes, and then he just jumps in, and then that's when Zeus intervenes and takes his power and gives it to the Colossus of Rhodes. So that's why like that's the initial battle, which is so cool. Still, you fight in the Colossus of Rhodes as you go through the city, and he's just smashing you, and you have to be like dodging. It's still, God of War is the king, especially that era of God of War. They're the kings of like the big intro. God of War, the original, like fighting the Hydra.
I respect it for sure, because everything that they've done for like that
spectacle,
that early spectacle, I think did so much for the way storytelling and single player games are done now. I mean, obviously we have our Uncharted's and then the Tomb Raiders and stuff, but I think God of War was where it
was really the pioneer. Then
kicked off, I think.
God of War kicked off that kind of spectacle, while they still control the way they frame it. Uncharted gave you control of the spectacle because you control your own camera. So you feel like all that craziness is happening with you, but you're still always in control. While the God of War spectacle, you're in the control of what Sony Santa Monica, the way you don't control the camera in those games. They
whatever quick time events that they want you to do.
Exactly. And I would say the one that, especially the flipping and doing Ascension first and then 3, I will say that Ascension as a campaign, like as a game, gets a little too much crap in a way. It's actually what I was telling my brother when we were headed to, because I had watched Thor: Love and Thunder and he hadn't, so I went with him 2 days ago. We were talking about, he was like surprised that like Thor Ragnarok has like a 93 on Rotten Tomatoes and it's so beloved, and this one by the same director like fell down to a 67. And then he was like, is it really that bad? Like, it was the fellow that bad? But then I was like, I feel it's not that it's definitely not as good, but I feel like sometimes when you do too much of the same thing, even though it's not significantly better or significantly worse of what came before, if you get a little bit of fatigue, you make yourself feel a little harsher on it. Like God of War Ascension is the only game in the series that scored an 80 in Metacritic versus like the 94, 93, 92 of the original trilogy and the high 80s of the PSP games. And I'll say this, like from a narrative standpoint, like God of War Ascension is a complete whiff. It's like that game got screwed by the fact that the better parts of the backstory were told in the PSP games. So and those were not made by Sony Santa Monica. They aided them, but Ready at Dawn, the guys that made The Order 1886, and then they got bought by Facebook, they did those PSP games. Those were like their coming out party. But the thing is that if you're completely oblivious of who makes games and you played those PSP games, you would swear they were made by the same dudes that made the PS2 games. That's how good they were. Like how perfect. How perfectly they were recreated.
I really wish I'd gotten to play them back in the day.
And
because I totally missed it.
They used to be on PS Now. I don't understand why they didn't put them back on PS Premium, because they would work.
There's got to be some kind of either licensing or coding issue that's stopping them from doing it. Because I would think that if they could, they would put everything that was on PS Now, just switching it over.
Yeah, but there were many games that were not put into PS Plus Premium for licensing and all that. And the thing is that Sony owns God of War. The thing is that those God of War games were made by Ready at Dawn, and they don't own them. So I wonder if there was like some weird. Then they need to cut some like weird licensing, because they made the game, so they have to get a cut, but they don't work for Sony. They work for Facebook now. So
especially now that Sony has made it very clear about their censoring desires, I don't think they could survive the way they currently are.
Yeah, but this still is like Sony's a hypocrite in a way. Because
they absolutely are.
They absolutely are, because if they were actually be censoring, why are they still offering God of War 3 in the service? So it's like, and that's a little bit more explicit. Now I'll just say this, like, from all these God of Wars that I played, the one that I enjoyed least was 3, and that used to be one of the ones that I enjoyed the most. But it's more because 3 to me, it's a game that if I look at it from the historical perspective, this and Uncharted 2 and then God of War 3 was what saved the PS3 completely, like completely changed the it was more like this, like people waited for God of War 3 to buy PS3s. That was the game many people were waiting for. And on top of that, that was a game that was a showcase. That was I remember I used to do this. This is like, let me show you what the PS3 can do. Like they're doing the Titan battle at the beginning, where you're climbing with Gaia and then fighting Poseidon. Like really that's still to this day, even when remastered on PS4, that's still one of the most stunning things I've ever seen. And still right now it holds up in scale and visual. I still put a few of the what I've been doing with our group chat, that I thankfully I love that the PS5 does, is that you screenshot it and then immediately the images is in the app, so you can download it there and then just share it. That's how I've been doing it.
I really appreciate that, because that's how I was able to do it, because I can. Well, okay, so I've been actually downloading it from the app and then sharing it, but I should probably.
That's how I do it. No, that's how I do it. I download them from the app, but because before you had to like share it on Twitter to be able to then download those images to share them somewhere else. That's how you used to do sharing. Now it's so much easier. Just click share and it's already in your phone. You don't have to like transfer it. So that's how I was showing you a couple. It's like, yeah, there's like that game has such a great art style that still stuns even 12 years later. That game's 12 years old and it doesn't look like,
it's shocking, especially. And I mean, once again, going back to stylized
realism is how you do it.
Up so much better. And that's the main reason why you get these games with longevity like that.
Yes. At the same time, it's like that's a game like when looking at it from the technical and the historical perspective, is that's one of the most important games from PlayStation, and still holds up from a spectacle. Content wise though, it's like it's the one where this game, just to tell you how culturally we've grown, this game was done at a time where people were like, how far can we push the violence? And people like reveling on that. And I feel now in the times that we live in, that's not like, you cringe more. It's like you beat I don't know if you remember, you beat Poseidon in first person, like from Poseidon's perspective, you're like wailing at him, but you're still controlling Kratos when you're like completely wailing him at the end, and then you end with pressing the 2 sticks to like carve your fingers into the egg, completely like gouging out and send him. There's like Helios. And like
I remember Helios.
Yeah, really Helios is like smashing his neck and then pulling his face on, and then that becomes like an item that you use to illuminate darkness. It's like so fun.
Which is kind of funny, honestly.
It's hilarious. What's funny is that was the first preview of God of War 3 that media got to see, and that was one of the first things that they showed. And then the director was like, and Kratos just got his new power up, just like that. Just like bam, and then you're seeing. But then the absolute worst part, when you're in Poseidon's residency and you find her like princess, that's like kind of semi-naked, and you're just like pushing her around, and then you basically like tie her to like a contraption to hold her so you can move in a door that can't open, and then you just hear in the background that she gets smashed, and her screams are like so horrifying that it's like and our friend Zach said it well. It's like. That just completely, like, it's crazy that then God of War 2018 came out afterwards, and just see how horrible he is and how much he's atoning. And I feel that was still the right approach. I feel it's like he could be as horrible as he could be here because you see the weight of that in 2018. In fact, when you're in if I remember, when you're in Alfheim, I mean Helheim, and you're in the boat, you see like a silhouette of him beating the crap out of Zeus. See, with the same perspective, and it's exactly
in its first person view. I remember it.
Exactly how it is in God of War 3.
Yeah.
It's like he's like so unbelievably violent in that game that it's like it's something that is like not something to celebrate as much now, because now it's like there's different sensibilities where there's people that say that the world has gone too woke, that people are just such wusses, but I feel there's something to be said that there is no need for extreme violence in things. And Cory Barlog agreed. When he came back when he left Sony Santa Monica after God of War 2 and leaving the story treatments for a bunch of the other games, but when he came back, he said, I've grown up, like I've got a kid, like my perspective is different. If I'm doing this, we cannot do how we used to do it before. And even if it meant completely changing the entire fabric of that series, for the better, I would say, because look how beloved the new one is. But
and I mean, as violent as it still is, it's somehow something you could play with most ages, provided the right level of like maturity of them. And it tells such a strong story that no matter what age you are, you can almost resonate with either character.
Yeah,
and it never glorifies the violence of the previous
exactly
stuff.
It's like if God of War 3 is hard R, God of War 2018 is soft R or hard PG-13, because there's like Brock and Sindri uses F-bombs sometimes, so there's like that automatically puts in our territory.
But like even at the worst, you have like maybe stuff that happens to the dragon, and maybe a few things that happen to like the giant's corpse. But like Baldur himself only gets his neck broken. I mean, spoilers for 2018's God of War, but I feel like we've all kind of gotten past that. And
it's been 4 years.
Maybe like what happens to Ragni with I think it's the sword that gets, or the axe that goes into his head, but that's about it. And the rest is like pretty tame overall.
It's like it's not much violent than Lord of the Rings. It's probably like the more violent part is like when you're fighting the trolls that just stab him with the axe and then like bring the whole boulder bang in his face.
The blood there is usually black or the color of like the troll himself, which is like either lava or ice or something like that. So it's kind of a toss-up depending on the kind of troll you fight in the first place.
Yeah, it's bad. So that's what I found more striking, because I flash back. I used to like really showcase all the violent things you could do in God of War 3 to my friends. And I remember some of my friends was like, dang, this is really violent, right? They just thinking there used to be a time where, and I bet so many kids are still there, that they revel and look how violent this is bad.
They're like, whoa, this is so crazy, dude.
Yeah, but it's like, it's true what they say, when the older you get, that tends to hit a little closer to home. It's not something I didn't expect to. I didn't whinge before, but this time I was like, yeah, I used to be such immature, but I still enjoyed playing through this. Like, it's still like the subject matter of God of War 3, aside of the things that I don't like about it, that's still like, to its core, all 6 games are basically the same, and they're all pretty good for what they were. So I'm kind of glad that I did, because I've been talking about me wanting to go back and write stuff. I'm gonna rank them, all of them, and I'm gonna write like a ranking of all God of Wars, including 2018. Obviously, spoiler alerts. Oh, I mean, 2018 is number 1.
Gosh, that's gonna be such a real curious thing to see which one wins.
But it's how the order of the other ones that's gonna be more.
That's
curious,
what I'm more interested in. I mean, my guess is probably like Ghosts of Sparta is gonna be pretty up there. Let me say like maybe 2, then 1. I don't actually
because we don't have much to. We don't have. There's gonna be barely any news that's coming, so let's rank them now. So
okay,
it's 7 of them. So number 7, God of War 3. That was my least favorite.
The lowest.
The lowest, because again, it's like historically great. It's like very important for the PS3, but not. But it's like its subject matter is like it doesn't no longer hold up. It's like that's Kratos as his most least likable, and even though it has some of the most epic boss fights of the entire series, there with the Kronos, Zeus, and all that, is like it tries to rock pull at the end and trying to justify like a Kratos about face, that it's not. I feel misses a little bit of just being like, you can't like have him be showing pathos for the girl Pandora that he's trying to look, that reminds him of his daughter. That when you compare that, he starts talking about Pandora immediately after destroying that woman at the end. It's like there's like a dissonance that they shouldn't have made him that violent to try to pull something emotional near the end. Even though I would say that the seeds of him becoming more of a family man are right at the end, that are followed up in 2018. So there's like it being at the last. I'm not saying it's a bad game. It's just the one that I enjoyed the least. Okay. Number 6, Ascension. I waver back and forth with this one, and I will say this: like both of these games have the worst stories of all of them. Especially Ascension suffers for having not much, because I mentioned they no longer had the context. Some of the coolest backstory was just in the PSP game, so they barely had anything. The big story here is just him freeing himself from the total bond of Ares. So it's not as it's not as compelling as a story, but I would say the Ascension has a sense of adventure that God of War 3 doesn't. God of War 3 is all about Olympus, and it makes like it's weird. It's like it's big scale, lower scale. That's the thing. It's like it occurs in such a little play space, but it's presented in such a grand way that it's only until you see and you go back to places 3 times in 3 that you're like, oh yeah, I'm back here at Hades, I'm back here at the chain, I'm back here at the main room that turns out to be the final boss. So that tiny scale, that's why I was like, Ascension at least moves you forward, even though it's still a little disjointed that there's a flashback here, now you're 2 hours here and all of that. But I feel they did great quality of life to that formula. It's like Kratos is less stiff, having the 4 elements with the blade with your blades, that you can imbue them with fire, ice, thunder, and the Hades power. Is like it gave more versatility to the combat, even though they also took a step back and adding a rage meter that you needed to fill up to start doing combos. So that made it a little annoying. And then having L1 and X to be able to do parry when before it was just tapping L1, that made the combat a little less fluid. But I would say like the sense of adventure, not having as many horrendous stuff as you can see in God of War 3, this time edged it out a little bit for me. And I love the puzzles in God of War Ascension. There's the singularity. If you've played the Raven software share Singularity from 360, where you can bleep something and travel back in time and reshape stuff, there's some cool there's some cool puzzles that you can do with Ascension that I feel spices up the gameplay. And the visuals for PS3, I tell you, is like Sony Santa Monica is still like to this day, I feel they know how to like extract so much beauty out of the PlayStation hardware. So yeah, Ascension number 6. Then number 5, Chains of Olympus, the PSP game. This one, nothing really wrong about this one, more than it's still impressive that, considering it was a PSP game, how faithful it was to what had come before. And it's a very simple story and has one of the coolest side weapons that you can get other than the chains, which is the Zeus Gauntlet. That reminds me of Batman Arkham Origins, when you get like the electric gauntlets that just completely trivializes the whole combat of the thing. But that's the God of War where again, it's like you see a little bit of humanity from Kratos. It's like the death of his wife and daughter, especially his daughter, like weighs on him, and he wanted nothing more than to try to get back to her. And that's what this, and Chains of Olympus kind of tells that story. And at the end, he has to like, you go to Elysium to find her, but then realizing that by going there, Hades' wife Persephone, she wants to like destroy the world of men, because she's feeling jilted that she was given to Hades against her own will. So she wants to use Atlas, the titan that holds the entire world, to kind of like bring it back. And and then when Kratos is with his daughter, you don't have your powers, but you realize if you stay here with the daughter, everyone's gonna die. So he has to like let go of his daughter to save a world that he doesn't like being saved. So that it starts adding a little bit of like that resentment to him, and that I feel that adds a little bit of context to why he's so angry all the time. So that's why I put it at number 5, and it's the one you fight Karen. You fight Karen here, yeah. So doesn't have as much big scale, but it's still pretty cool, especially for a non-made Sony Santa Monica game. Then number 4, I have to put the original God of War by David Jaffe, the one that kicked it all off. Thinking about this game as the thinking how when it came out in 2005, I still say that it's pretty impressive what they did, the kind of scale it shows from the very beginning with the Hydras, and then you go into Athens and see at the background, you see Ares in its towering stuff, like, and you see it massive scale, and then you think
2005 was a really good year for games.
Oh yeah, Shadow of the Colossus was also there, the new
Kingdom
version,
Hearts 2.
Kingdom Hearts 2, Call of Duty 2, many Okami
games.
Yeah, a lot of Nintendo games still there. Resident Evil 4 was 2005 also.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, 2005 was a banger, I tell you.
It was all-star year. All right.
Yes. And God of War 1 just is such a great adventure. And then again, it's like Kratos is a bit of an asshole there, but it's like there's that tragedy. That's where you find out stuff. It's like the story twist of finding out why he's so white ash and figuring out like why he wanted to break out of Ares, because Ares wanted to for him as this great warrior, but he meant that he needed to like let go of so much attachments that he tricks Kratos into murdering his wife and child and like in like a village raid, and then a witch cursing him to like be like, you'll have the reminder of your shame for the rest of your days, and that's the ash. The ashes that he carries in his skin are his daughter and wife.
It's really interesting how they co-opted basically the origin for Hercules into Kratos by creating. Like Kratos existed in like the Greek pantheon beforehand, but he was such a minor side of it that it's so funny that now that's one of the ones that everybody thinks of because of the games. But in Greek mythology, he was almost a non-character in the first place. So it's so impressive that they could make so much out of nothing.
Oh, absolutely. And I think like what helps us that Kratos is relatively likable in this one. It's like he's not always screaming all the time. Like he has like more solemn conversations with Athena as of what he's doing, and him trying to. And to me, one of the more powerful things of that first God of War game, especially is near the end when you're in the fight with Ares. Ares sends you into like this weird dimension where ghostly apparitions of yourself are trying to kill your wife and daughter. You protect you protect your kids there.
Now that you mentioned that,
it's like
remember that.
It's so cool seeing like in that having a little bit of pathos through the gameplay and show you Kratos is not the murderous bastard that he's in 3. It's like there was something to him that it didn't make him so one note, and that still shines heavy in that first game.
Other thing, actually, I'll let you finish first.
Yeah, and I feel it's like just the kind of sense of scale. You're thinking a lot of that game happens in the back of a Titan. When you go find Kronos in the desert, and then it's like the temple is in the back, and then sometimes you go outside and you see Kronos' face there. Which, when you put it there, that you fight Kronos in 3, and then you think you're having a boss fight with the Titan, who's the entire setting of the whole Pandora's box of 1 happened in his back. So there's like the way they play scale. It's good to think about it going back to 1 and where you go with 3. What are you gonna say?
It's I love the building of stakes. But yeah, one thing about God of War 1, it's actually funny because I forgot to mention it. If you remember the G4 TV days, they actually had, for anybody who doesn't know, G4 TV was like one of the first like video game only TV channels, and
it's
would
back.
Always talk about. I think I might have heard that recently.
Yeah, it's kind of back, but it's bad.
Yeah, so
don't look current.
Anyway, it was like network TV, and they would actually like show tips on games, and one of them was for the original God of War 1, and it was like the solution to one of the puzzles, and then they were showing gameplay of the final battle, and I had no idea what it was, didn't know the name of the game. It was so striking and interesting to look at that I was like, I have no idea what's going on, but this is really interesting to watch the solution to a puzzle that I've never seen in a game before. So it was just, that was something that was really funny. And then way later on did I find out, oh, that was God of War.
Because you played it in the collection on PS3.
And I remembered the solution to the puzzle because sure enough, I had trouble with it at first. And I was like, wait a minute. I remember this. It was the spikes that would shoot up and you had to kick the box.
Yeah, you had to kick the box to the side before you jump up. Yeah.
Sure enough, it was so funny that I remembered that. And then later on, when I found out that like Kratos grows huge and fights Ares one-on-one, I was like, I remember that from the show.
Yeah, and then in that fight when you're with the blades and you lose your blades, and then you realize that a bridge that you crossed before was a sword, and then you just lift the sword, and then
you take the stone sword and fight him with it. I was like, that's so cool.
Yeah, that first God of War game is like it looks very aged now. I mean, it's from 2005, but it's still some it's still like, even with better quality of life in other games, there's just something special about that first game. I still enjoy it, and it's very relatively short. There's one pain point in that section when you're in Hades, that you're climbing the rotating tower that has like spikes, and then you get hit, you can drop all the way to the bottom. That thing was not play tested well, and it's crazy that, how hard that part is. It can like make you tear your hair out, but I like everything around that game so much that I don't mind that pain point there.
All right, what's next?
Number 3, Ghost of Sparta. So I wavered between Ghost of Sparta and 2, and I feel that in a different day they could like flip for me, but like Ghost of Sparta is like, this is the game that finally like gives more personality to Kratos, the origin of not only like his demigodness, but like what drove him, which was like the loss of his brother Deimos. And ironically, Ghost of Sparta was supposed to be the original story of God of War 2. That was, if you go into the behind the scenes videos that you can access in God of War 1, you see like the future of the franchise. I mean, you click and they say that they were planning on this story to follow up afterwards, which was like what happened to his brother and how he like got tangled with the god of death Thanatos. And you finding out the origins of when he lost his brother, what's driving him, and finding his brother and losing his brother in the battle against Thanatos, and realizing this was all the gods doing, because the fates had been prophesizing that a character with a red mark was like destined to destroy Olympus. And at the time when they were younger, the brother had the red mark, not Kratos. Kratos just got the red marks as an honor to his brother, because of he lost it, and then realizing that, and then that justifying the origin of his anger really reshaped that whole story. And he does it with, and getting to see a Kratos that goes to Sparta. Like how do you see he's called the Ghost of Sparta? No other game lets you go to actual Sparta. When you go there, and it's a quiet place where you're like walking, you see everyone like cheering for you. And then he like vibing really well with his soldiers, and then one of the soldiers being like, "I got a gift for you, you're gonna love." And then he comes back, and it's a shield and a spear, which is one of the coolest like secondary weapons the series ever had, other than the blades. With like, and you can like put it there and rush people, throw the spear infinite. It's like, when I saw that, because I know you're all about the shield and spear, I was like, oh, you would have loved this,
especially for the Spartans.
And has better, and this one has some really it doesn't have any heinous stuff. It probably has the most funny sex scene of the Greek of the Greek thing. Obviously the sex scenes are always happening like off screen, but just the implications of that are just so god damn it. I'll tell you off screen what it is, but Ghost of Sparta is like, I was very shocked at the biodiversity of the place. You actually sink Atlantis in this game.
I don't think I realized that. Okay.
Yeah, that's the Atlantis has like the portal to the entrance of the world of the dead, and it only happens if you sink the city. So you have to come back to the city while it's underwater, and you activate a volcano that sinks the city. So it's like it starts playing with a little bit of the mythology. It's like, okay, this is really cool. And the game was written by Cory Barlog, so it's not like some side story. It's like this was the last one he wrote before he left. So
wow.
So, and then obviously number 2, God of War 2. God of War 2, I feel, is the pinnacle of this style of Greek game. The story, you can make the argument, this is where you Kratos is already this huge anger-filled machine, but I feel the story doesn't let you linger too much in that, and just gives you like a very simple revenge tale of like, Zeus killed me and the Titans revived me, and because we gotta stick it to him, and that's basically the whole story. So it doesn't let you linger in that. 3 lets you linger a lot on his anger, that's why it's a little bit more off-putting, and it looks better, so it's like, it's more gruesome. So 2 is not as gruesome, but 2 is a absolute marvel of an adventure. Like, you ride Pegasus twice, like you go to the island of Typhon and you see it from the side, and it's like, it has the best biodiversity of the God of War games of that era. Some of the cooler boss fights, you fight Perseus, you fight the Kraken, obviously the Colossus of Rhodes. Great boss fight there. And the very end with Zeus, after you fight like if you remember Hercules, the 3 witches that give the thread for the timeline. They have their versions of these 3 witches here. Those are like the main driver. But it's just a game with such great momentum. It's such a great game with such great evolution of combat. It's such a great game with like great art style that I think you would appreciate even years down the line. it has some really great puzzles, and it's like probably the realization of Clash of the Titans in video games here.
Yeah, and gosh, that was a movie series that I think just
should have been better
really
than it was.
Shined. Yeah. Once again, during the phase of time where all the main characters had buzz cuts. Anyway, God of War 2 is interesting because I remember the beginning really well, and I remember almost none of the rest of it. And I know I've beaten it, because I went through the mainline story in the PS3 collection.
With the exception of Ascension, which I discovered you never finished because you were...
that was shocking to me, because I was like, well, I know I don't remember much of it, but I remember fighting a lot of really cool things.
I think you reached the Trial of Archimedes, which is like this gauntlet near the end that was so horrifically hard until they patched it. You probably just left it because
that's probably it then.
You didn't have the trophy for the completion of that, so I was like, that's
but
probably
I did
where you
play
stopped.
A lot of that multiplayer.
It was fun. The multiplayer was fun.
That was good. I really liked that multiplayer. I kind of wish that could come back in just some bootleg version that's like, oh, it's not really God of War, but it's totally that gameplay. Which I appreciate that there's like a niche for that, where it's like, yeah, this isn't it, but it's basically it. Just don't tell anyone.
No.
But yeah, that's really all I remember about God of War 2.
Yeah,
and I do
2 and Ascension do share common, like, more common items than you would expect, especially in adventure. If they're the 2 God of War games that makes you feel like you're going on an adventure. 1 and 3 are a little bit more secluded in specific areas, so that's how I differentiate. But God of War 2 is just such an immaculately made game. And it's still like, I can see why it's still considered one of the greatest action games of all time, because it's still... That was right before Kratos became nigh on unlikable. That was like pushing the scale of the PS2 in art direction and in execution in ways that it hadn't done before. So God of War 2 is like, it's the pinnacle. They're about, of course, number 1, God of War 2018. I've said it many times before. This is the game that the expert reinvention of the series. There's a reason the sequel is so highly anticipated. And it's so funny that we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 games in the Greek mythology. Now we're only gonna get 2 in the Norse mythology because they packed so much into these ones. So
they really did. I mean, you could argue that in order to play 2018, you're basically playing through at least like 3 or 4 separate games.
Absolutely,
to go through it. And so it's like, hey, we just got more efficient, and I appreciate that, honestly.
Oh yeah, no, and that's the thing that I learned, that the plan originally was only for there to be 2 God of War games in the Greek pantheon, and the Titan climb was planned as the end of 2. The one that ended up becoming the beginning of 3, that was the end of 2. That's why like 3 is almost like the story of 3 is 2 again, but worse. That's kind of how that story feels, because in like 2 you want to just beat Zeus because he came in and killed you. So 3 you want to kill Zeus also. So it's like it's like a bunch of round 2, and 3 was, they realized that the PS2 was not gonna be able to properly do what they ended up doing with 3. But that's why like 3 suffers such big pacing problems that 2 doesn't, because it gives us amazing big moments and then a lot of lull. Another big moment with Chronos, another lull. So 2 is a little bit more even with what it gives you and how fun it is in puzzles and the weapons it gives you. But 2018, it's like just it'd be recontextualizing the entire 6 games and trying to see Kratos not excuse his behavior, but trying to be better, and the game becoming something deeper with the weapons it gives you, the ways that the adventure can unfold, a story that's very play-like, and just focusing on Kratos and Atreus and having the things come in and out and at the right amount of time, giving you everything that you need, as little as you need or as much as you need, and every moment not feeling wasted. Are there a few issues with 2018? Yeah, the map kind of sucks, especially if you're trying to do the full 100% run, but I feel it's a game that just constantly gives you, that constantly delights you, and there's a reason Ragnarok is so anticipated. 2018 just really changed the ante of that kind of game. So that's the Escape Media God of War rankings. That will be in written form also. So,
yeah, really. So then in a quick final part, I know you played a couple others, so let's
just to blast through them. It's like I'd play Lost Legacy again. I did the crushing playthrough on PS4 earlier, but I was like, I want to see it on PS5, and then just put it on easy and just blew through it. Really enjoy that game a lot. Jak and Daxter: The Precursors Legacy, it's like it's part of the PS Premium, so I was like, I want to play the original Jak and Daxter, because I tried to play 2 and 3 on PS3 earlier. Well, that's when I told you, man, these games are hard. But I wanted to see it and the original, and it's like that original Jak and Daxter is like a Mario 64 almost. So I was like,
that's a good description.
You have to collect this thing. You basically collect stars, which is like those precursor items. So I was like, this will be in a game where I need in the mood of just listening to a podcast, turn my brain off, enjoy some platforming. It's definitely gonna be there in the docket. And then I finally did complete my Naughty Dog. I'm completing my Naughty Dog journey with Last of Us Part 2 now. Soon after you had completed yours, and I'm not doing what you did of playing it in grounded with permadeath. I already platinumed that game. I don't need those other trophies. You're not like. You didn't platinum this game, so I have something. I have something above you in there. Last of Us Part 2 is like last time I played it was December 2020 before Game Awards Game of the Year, because I needed to figure out if that was still my Game of the Year. And I'm reminded why I've waited this long to replay it, because it's a really dense game. It's so massive, especially like I played so much of it yesterday and being like, oh crap, I haven't even started day 2 because I'm still playing it like I used to before. It's like I can see why you felt exhausted about it, because it's a big one, but it just some story beats like really hit me. I still like a lot of the story of that game being framed around the Eddie Vedder song, if I ever if I were to lose you, and using that kind of like as a consistent theme. I'm realizing that as dark as that game tries to like thread itself in, theming itself against that song, and some of and some lighthearted moments that you can still get, like when Dina and Ellie are early on before everything kind of goes to hell there. That game still tries to like humanize itself in a way to kind of offset some of the heavy dark parts, and it makes me realize this story still resonates with me. I can't wait to like play more of it, because now this is my first time playing it on PS5 with the 60 frames, and I'm like, now I'm not doing as much of a stealth run, I'm doing more of an action run, but mixing it more like mixing and matching. I like it. I like it because I don't just go guns blazing, but I don't begrudge
a little bit of a mix and match is nice.
It just flows so well, and it just tells me, obviously we talked about the leaks of part 1 last week in the news. They came out with that 10-minute video to kind of as a response to the leaks, to kind of detail a little bit of what they've improved. And to me, it's like when I realized it's like part 1 and like the original and part 2 shared the same control scheme. It's all about animation, and I feel like the improved animation is just gonna help the feel of part 1 better. And in the way like your character moves and switches to weapons and ML and all that, like 2 is just masterful at blending all of that. And let's see how long it's gonna take me to like rebeat it, or if I change my tune and other stuff. So I'll still say like Last of Us Part 2 and God of War 3 do share a little bit of, okay, this is like some of the violence in this is a little too much, like, and like early, especially before the upgrade you get with Ellie with the knife. Before it's like slowly. So it just feels a little too gratuitous at some of the violence. So I can see that I'm noticing that more than I did back in 2020. But also because I upgraded stealth so quickly back then to get into that quick stab move, quick stab. So funny, make your game less violent by just quick stabbing. So, but yeah, that's all I've been playing, Paul. So now that I indulge in some ranking, all that, good thing we don't have much to talk about in news, but there's 4 significant news updates. So Paul,
press X
for some news. All right, Paul, so thankfully some big news for this week broke right before we recorded this time. Usually we have been having the bad luck of things breaking the day after our recording, which has always been our curse. This time it's been the opposite. This first one, absolute heartbreaker. Number 1, if you're excited for the PS5 PC remake of the beloved Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, prepare yourself for some terrible news. As relayed by Jason Schreier via Bloomberg, the project led by sports studio Aspyr officially revealed that the 2021 PlayStation Showcase has been indefinitely delayed. Allegedly, Aspyr presented a vertical slice to both Lucasfilm Games and Sony on June 30th, this past month. A few weeks later, both the design director and the art director were both fired. Aspyr studio heads are said to have informed staff this month that the demo they showed at Sony to both Sony and Lucasfilm hadn't met internal expectations, and work on the game was being paused, with the company planning to seek new development opportunities. And it's been suggested that Aspire's parent company, Saber Interactive, which was assisting the developer, may take over the full reins of the project. The game had been in development for 3 years at Aspire, which originally planned to have it ready for release by the end of 2022. One Bloomberg source suggested too much time and money had been invested in the demo, and that a more realistic release window now would be 2025, if at all.
Oh, so I guess some people called this, especially when finding out whoever the person developing this was. I know you shared that one meme video about who it was and how crestfallen the individual was when he found out.
That was when they found out this writer that had said before that she never was a big fan of KOTOR in the first place, and was part of that funny video about the GTA virtual rape. Was part of this project, and she was no longer part of this project after like months after that, but I assume she assisted with something while she was there. But that video is so hilarious. That Snark Tank video.
So just imagine you get like the dream job you've ever wanted, and you get to create a vertical slice demo for the internal people, and it's so bad they immediately fire you. I want to know what this demo was now. Very badly.
Yeah, because like the design director basically is like that tells you how the game's gonna be playing, and the art director is the one that gives you the look.
I'm wondering how bad the art direction must have been, because that's such like a specific thing, and I feel that is very now easy to do with Star Wars, because it's like formalized now exactly what makes a Star Wars feel. And so how do you mess that up so badly?
Yeah.
And I just fire you.
Yeah, and I feel this, unfortunately, the sad reality is that Aspire has never done an official game before. They have been a port studio. They have been like been porting all the old Star Wars games to modern platforms. On Switch, you have so many of those old games. You have both KOTOR 1 and KOTOR 2. They're on Switch right now. You can get Spire gave us Jedi Knight Outcast and Jedi Academy. Spire gave us the Racer game, also the Episode 1 Racer. They've been a port studio for years. In fact, they worked with LucasArts back in the day to port games to the Mac. So they have been doing port just forever, and this was the first time that they said, "Oh yeah, I think if we hire the right people, we can do we can actually remake this stuff." In fact, apparently they even hired old BioWare staff that previously worked on this game to work on this. So the intentions were right, but I feel eventually it's like, no matter how good your intentions, sometimes the studio may not have may not have the chops to be able to do this. But if they sunk so much time, if this was in development for 3 years and they put so much time just for the vertical slice, just kind of to give you an idea, let's go back to E3 2016. Sony, when they unveiled God of War with the orchestra and the first official gameplay demo, it's like, even though a lot of that initial chunk ended up in the game, that was still a vertical slice. The entire game wasn't made then at the time.
I remember there were parts of it that very much didn't show up, like when Kratos got really mad at Atreus and like the rage meter showed up. I was like, that didn't make it through. So it was like, even though
the fight with the troll, the fight with the troll happened earlier in the vertical slice, and the game is after you're trying to like coach Atreus into finishing his. So that's kind of gives you an idea. Like vertical slices like gives you a right idea of like how the game is supposed to look, and then from there you scale the project. But if they spend that much time and effort in there, and it wasn't even that impressive, that Lucasfilm and Sony were like, nope, and then the design director and art director were fired. It's like, why is Star Wars in gaming so cursed? I don't understand. It's like,
gotta be some kind of, because I mean, Star Wars as it is, we've already talked about it, it's a series and world that writes its own adventures out of it. It's so like easy to create something out of that when something like this consistently happens in this one industry pocket, there's got to be something else going on. So that's where I think you and I and Zach are all agreeing that there's got to be some kind of executive meddling behind the scenes, that they want such specific things that it's holding developers back whenever they want to make something.
Hmm.
And I feel like it's more of a miracle every day that Jedi Fallen Order even managed to come out and be as good as it is.
Yeah, and even then, that game was undercooked AF because they
Yep.
still put it out much earlier than it was anticipated
and they
because they
had
needed
to
something.
patch in a whole lot of extra stuff to it to make
And it's
it
still
more
janky.
stable. And even now, it's still janky, and it still feels like it's got soul to it, but there's clearly a lot of problems going on. So it's like, what causes all of this stuff? There's got to be one common denominator, because all of these have been different writers, different groups with different strengths and weaknesses, and there's only one, and it's that it's owned by Disney, and Disney loves to mess with all of the things getting made by them.
So here's what's funny though, like specifically with when the Star Wars deal was made in 2013, that they gave the license to EA for 10 years. They intentionally were as hands off as humanly possible, because they had just gone through a phase where all the games that they try to make Disney internally with Disney Interactive were not that they were quality wise bad, but they bombed commercially to what they were expecting, that they were trying to still have a presence in the gaming sphere without really directing stuff directly.
Yeah.
The only time that they really got involved was when the Battlefront 2 fiasco happened, because at that time was like Battlefront 2 was popping up in CNN, in CNBC, and all this stuff, like all with the microtransaction calamity, that then they had to call in.
Not to
step in. Because they were like, that was when, ironically, that was all happening in the lead up to The Last Jedi. So they knew that they had that movie. There was hype for that movie at the time. People were excited for it. And then they, having that game kind of like besmirching the Star Wars name, that's when they called Bob Iger from Disney, called EA, be like, what the F? What's happening? It's like, fix this. And that's why they janked the microtransactions like before the official game came out. And that was the only time that they like really meddled. And then when they realized that EA was just canceling Star Wars games left and right, that nothing, they weren't delivering the deliverables, that's when now Disney formed Lucasfilm Games. And that happened, that was real last year when the Ubisoft Star Wars game was announced. They were like, yeah, this is under the new Lucasfilm Games label, because then we learned if we have a label that we control that can oversee these projects like Marvel games, that probably is going to create better quality. And to be fair with Marvel games, it's like the only miss has been Marvel's Avengers.
Yeah.
At least everything, like they have, the projects that Marvel games has given and that have come out have mostly been good. So Lucasfilm Games is like, it maybe have come a little, maybe too little too late, but let's give also the benefit that there's some, that now with Disney wants quality control there. And this wasn't EA this time. But
I can't blame them as much as I want to. This is something else.
Exactly.
And,
I feel the Star Wars IP just in games is just cursed. I think that's what happened. It shouldn't be.
It makes me sad. I think part of it is Disney's so paranoid about all of their missteps lately that they really want something specific, and nobody's able to deliver what they want. Which I don't even think Disney knows what they want. Frankly.
No, especially not with right now. Not with Star Wars. It's like, especially since Rise of Skywalker, is like that whole IP has just been in complete disarray of what exactly is the direction. There's some direction with the TV shows, but it still doesn't feel that's a unified direction like even Marvel. Like Marvel's already bombarding us with Phase 5 and Phase 6, but at least they know what they want.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so Paul, does this remake come out?
If it does, it's not coming out for a while.
Yeah. I feel the fact that Sony itself put money into this, I think guarantees that they may, unless it's so catastrophic that they just have to like have their money back.
I mean, that's a good point. It's a sunk cost fallacy thing where they're like, all right, we've already put money in, we got to make this work and eventually come back to us. So I feel like eventually it will, but if it does, it's not going to be anything of what they've seen and we haven't yet. They'll probably have to start from scratch, just like they did with the Metroid Prime stuff.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. It's like too bad for Aspire. This could have been their coming out party, but hey, sometimes like some studios may have what it takes and others won't. But I'm hoping for the best, because I held off on replaying the originals because I knew there was a remake was coming. But it's like
still one of the best storylines I've ever had.
Yeah,
in Star
and
Wars,
in Switch, the turn-based combat kind of works. Like it.
It does work better on a Switch, I'll say that
Mhm.
much. And if you can get over the really terrible animations,
It,
there's a
they're not
solid
as
story.
horrible. They're not as horrible. Like it's
There's
because
just they're not bad. They're just reused. This
Mhm.
they reuse the same like 3 or 4 animations for everything.
Yeah.
So it was like one of those you can feel the charm to it,
Mhm.
but you just have to go into it the right way.
You know what should have given us like the red flags about this thing was what Aspire just recently released KOTOR 2 on Switch, and it launched with a game-breaking bug that they admitted they can't fix.
And they
So
were like, "Yeah, please don't play the game, or it's gonna ruin everything." Did
uh,
they ever fix that?
no.
Oh my gosh!
So because they said that it was a problem that it's not gonna affect so many people. That's like the last thing they mentioned. I was
No.
like,
So they were just like, it won't affect most of you. Just don't worry about it.
yeah, that should have been the
Oh,
biggest red
that's
flag
not a
there.
good
Yeah.
sign. Oh yeah.
Oh man.
What's next?
Yeah. So I'll say at this point, R.I.P. KOTOR remake. But I would hope that Sony, like, here before that, yes, people were crapping on Xbox from passing on this remake. There was like rumors that they literally like they were the first studios that Aspire went to work in this, and then Xbox said, nah. It's kind of like what happened with Star Wars with the Spider-Man game, that they were like, nah, we want to make our own stuff, and now they're probably mightily regretting. Apparently they had said no because they didn't really trust Aspire would deliver something. That's why the game ended up being like going to Sony. So maybe is this one of the few times where Microsoft saying no, they dodged the bullet. So
It sounds like it right now, at least.
yeah,
But I
because
guess
now
we'll
this
see.
has the Sony Interactive Entertainment stamp of approval. That was at the beginning of the 2021 showcase. It's like Sony believed this could have been a big one. So I wonder if Sony now is gonna be like, no, this better come out. Oh well. Yes. Number two, Paul. Bloomberg's Jason Schreier has revealed a few new details about the upcoming Grand Theft Auto game, allegedly titled Grand Theft Auto 6. In the midst of a company expose noting some of the studio's cultural shifts after years of endless grunge and frat boy culture, Schreier revealed the game will be set in Miami, aka Vice City, will feature a female protagonist of Latina origin that will have a male partner inspired by the crime duo Bonnie and Clyde, and that the game will first release as a single city with lots of buildings with the capacity to go inside them, with more parts of the map to be released over time live service style. The game is also allegedly undergoing some tonal changes, where there will be less jokes that punch down compared to the previous GTA games, which reflects a more socially conscious Rockstar compared to the satire old Rockstar of old. The game's also targeting a release window of at least 2 years from now.
I feel like anything that I have said has been said. I feel like Zach framed it pretty well in our group chat, where he's like, all right, Rockstar is this company that tries to talk big about like how much they do to help the people that work under them, but the reality is that they just refused to work on this game for half a decade because they wanted to milk their previous thing that came out in 2013. So I don't have any sympathy for them. I know I'm going to eventually play it. It sounds interesting with the Latina character and the Bonnie and Clyde style. I know a lot of people loved Vice City. I don't like that whole live service thing. I am worried about how that's going to go, and you know that it is going to be so bad. Just for perspective for anybody listening, GTA 5 came out in 2013. I'm pretty sure the online came out the same year or the next year.
A month after.
A month
in
after,
PS3.
okay, same year. And they just changed the payouts for the missions about last week, I think.
Yeah, you put it in our chat.
Yeah, so that's how much they actually care about like the balanced attitude of things, which I didn't even mention it in there, but they also nerfed a lot of other ways that people have been using to get money. So they're like, no, you're gonna get money in our way and nowhere else. So that's kind of like a lateral move in general. So the fact that they're doing all of this, I do not have a lot of faith in the process. I'm sure it's going to be great. It's going to be polished. It's going to be really entertaining. And
So
it's going to be really bad.
the thing is that I don't fully shared the whole thing of that they didn't want to work on this game, because the thing was that they were working on Red Dead after GTA 5. Because the thing is that they changed their, because here's what happened. There used to be a way where Rockstar used to make games where they had different Rockstar silo teams working on different games, and then they could come
like a different color logo and stuff.
Yeah, so for example, Max Payne 3 was made by Rockstar Vancouver. Red Dead Redemption 1 was Rockstar San Diego. GTA 4 and its DLCs were Rockstar North in Britain. After when GTA 5 was coming out, they consolidated all development to be like all Rockstar Studios are gonna be working on this one game. And then when the idea for Red Dead 2 came out, San Diego was no longer gonna work on just that game. It was gonna be all Rockstar. So it was the same studio, like the same number of studios that worked on 5 were working on Red Dead Redemption 2. So that's why we get less Rockstar games now compared to how we used to get them back in like the 360 era, where in 2008 we got GTA 4, in 2009 the DLCs, 2010 Red Dead Redemption, 2011 they teamed up with Team Bondi in Australia for LA Noire, 2012 Max Payne 3, and then 2013 GTA 5, and then until then till 2018 that's when we got Red Dead Redemption 2, which was a game made with, per Jason Schreier's previous reporting, under extreme crunch and duress because of the massive scale they were aiming for and the kind of quality that it's in every inch of that.
They put way too much scope and scale into that. I mean, they literally put the entirety of the Red Dead Redemption 1 map in there and then put nothing in it. Mm-hmm. So it's like they clearly kind of overdid themselves with that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So it's like, gosh, some of that could have really been avoided, guys.
Yeah, so the main people making the content was working on Red Dead, and they had then the small team in like Dublin that was keeping the live service of GTA Online going. The assets were already there. They were just adding stuff as they were going. It was not just the entirety of Rockstar working on that. So, and then on top of that, they needed to like try to juggle Red Dead Online, and that didn't even work because they immediately didn't see the returns, and they're like, this just pump out more.
Gave up on that.
Yes, they pumped up more the light team pumped up more content over there and on online before they started proper work on this new GTA. Like that would have been now 2019, 2020, 2021, 4 years that they've been working on this new one. So it's like there's a difference. You can be like, they could have done it differently. They could have released this new GTA faster, but the reality is that they changed the production pipeline to try to make Red Dead like GTA 5 and Red Dead a reality, the ones that we got, because that's when they got more ambitious. These are two of the most ambitious open world games, like in the tiny little details and all of that you can see there. But then at the same time, it's like it just made it that now it's just taking too long to release these kinds of games now. And on top of that, now this new GTA comes at a time that Dan Houser, the writer, is no longer there. Who last wrote Red Dead Redemption 2, went on sabbatical for 2 years, and then he was like, I'm out. The Bruce Straley method, the post burnout after crunch, and then coming back and be like, yeah, I'm out. So this new GTA will no longer have the writer that satired all. Now it's in, and now we're living a more socially conscious era, so they're no longer gonna be making fun of everyone. And even Jason Schreier in that article didn't put it here. He made note that the PS5 re-release of GTA 5 apparently removed some transphobic jokes that I didn't even know were there. So,
either, but I'm sure they existed.
Yes. So now they're like at a point. Like, now these GTAs exist at a point where they're no longer the South Park everything goes. Like let's make fun of everything.
I don't think anybody can get away with that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel
for them for finally reading the room.
Yeah, they finally read the room, but will the GTA fan base accept that? That's gonna be interesting.
The GTA fan base is by far one of the most toxic ones I've ever seen. So
it's too big.
It's huge. It's the same group that's plays Call of Duty all the time.
Mm-hmm. It's the same group.
It's a group, that's for sure.
And this whole live service thing, it's definitely, I feel it's taking lessons of, they made that big massive single player in GTA 5 and then they just focus on online. Yeah. They're probably now merging it together. So
Yeah, and I understand from one side it's probably going to make it easier for them in the pipeline side of things, because it's like, all right, it's one in the same, and then you get to just put that content out to all of it, because that's one of the problems, is that all the cool content that was in online literally couldn't be in the single player version of the game. So like vehicles, weapons, all of the awesome stuff just couldn't exist if you wanted to play by yourself. And that's where the whole rise of GTA Online solo players kind of became a thing, because there's a lot of people that just don't want to deal with all that crap.
Yeah, you just
And I
sometimes want to
respect
exist in
it,
that world because
'cause I want to be one of those people too, that just quietly does his own thing. I used to, like, before Spider-Man came out on PS4, that was the game that I'd play to just have phone conversations. I'd drive through the world just for the fun of it.
yeah,
'Cause it's just
you don't
really
want to be
special.
constantly griefed by people. Like that's always a problem with like that GTA Online environment. So I would hope that even though they will it would appear they will merge them, because why would do a single player? They're gonna add stuff over time. That's exactly live service mentality.
Yeah.
That they find a way for at least the sanctity of like a kind of sort of single player experience to still exist. But remember, this is also the Rockstar that put out GTA Trilogy recently. Even though they didn't make them, they farmed those out, but they still thought the work was good enough that they could stamp their name on it and put it out. So it's like, this GTA, the people making this GTA doesn't seem like it's the same people that gave us 5 and Reddit. So there's always a chance that this is definitely gonna come below par. So for what it used to be. So
See what happens.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious.
I still haven't replayed GTA 5 other than like the little bit I did with the PS5 version. So
Like,
you did
not
GTA Online.
replayed.
You fell back into
I went
GTA
back
Online.
to that,
Yeah.
but the single player I don't think has aged really that well at all. I mean, mechanically it's fine. It's just the whole Trevor side of things, and a lot of the discussion topics and the storyline is just
Yeah,
like,
it's very
all right,
2013. Yeah.
come on. It is very 2013.
Yeah. So now will GTA 6 make fun of global pandemics? That would be funny. So
Oh, you know they will.
yes, they better. So number 3, Paul. This one was an interesting one because of the way it was kind of revealed and then detailed afterwards. EA is reportedly working on a single-player open-world game based on Black Panther. According to Giant Bombs, formerly GameSpeed, own Jeff Grubb, the game is early in development and it's allegedly the works in the new Seattle-based studio EA opened, headed by former Monolith Productions boss Kevin Stephens from Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War fame. Not much else is known about the game other than the premise being the game starts with Black Panther being dead and your playable character assuming the Black Panther legacy, which sounds not so different from the alleged plot from this November's Black Panther Wakanda Forever movie, which worked the unfortunate passing of Black Panther's star Chadwick Boseman into the main plot. Whether this game's Black Panther is also dead T'Challa remains to be seen. They haven't given more of that detail. So
Yeah. I don't know if I have too much to say about this one outside of the like obvious, hey, this is kind of tone deaf, guys. Maybe we shouldn't treat one actor's role in a completely different medium as the universal focus. But I understand there's like, all right, we're going to pay respects to this really great actor and great man who passed, unfortunately. But then it's like, can't we just make other things?
yeah, so it's insane to me. Are we literally gonna live in a world when in the last year or two, the only true T'Challa content we've gotten is in Marvel's Avengers? Yeah,
Or Marvel versus Capcom Infinite.
Yeah, but that's even before. That was even before NBC Infinite was before Black Panther came out. So before
was it really that
yeah,
long?
Infinite
God.
was in September
Oh, man.
2017. So,
Okay, never mind. I really thought that was more recent.
Nope.
Ignore that then.
it's always on sale also for like $9 if you see it in the sales charts.
It's not good. Don't
Yeah.
play it.
It's to me it's like interesting that, like, for example, what happened with Marvel's Avengers, like the day the game was gonna come out, they were gonna do like a reveal of Black Panther, the one that we ended up getting at E3. They delayed it because of Chadwick had just passed. That I understood, but they still had a T'Challa.
Right.
Yes,
He was like a fully alive, interesting character
and
voiced by
voiced by
Christopher
Chris Judge.
Judge.
And he's excellent in like he sounds so different from Chadwick. He has his own thing, and the little
Yeah.
in the little campaign they give you Black Panther, they nailed Black
That is
Panther.
like
So.
the voice of a man with gravitas. And for anybody listening who doesn't realize the connection, that's also the voice of Kratos from 2018's God of War. But I mean, that man has such a solid voice that commands a room, and that would make sense because
That would make sense for the king. Yeah.
So man, it's a shame that that's what they're doing, and it's outside of this environment or what's going on in real life. It would be a fantastic idea for a story. It's just a shame that it happens to a character who's already like, we're dealing with that already. Why do we have to deal with that?
Also, yeah. I feel like, especially with them not giving much detail, I would hope it's about King T'Chaka passing and then T'Challa.
Because that's kind of been worked into the story already. I mean, obviously we saw it in Civil War, and I think it was already the case beforehand, if I'm remembering right.
Yeah.
So like that could very much be a totally okay thing to do, and we went through that whole process, and so you could see that goes well, and then T'Challa lives.
Yeah, exactly. I feel and definitely like the each separate medium should be treated like that. Like the comic didn't kill T'Challa just because Chadwick Boseman died, even though many comics are notorious for killing and bringing back characters. That happened with T'Challa also. But at the same time, it's like you don't need all of that to also be that thing. Like with Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which by the way, that trailer is a work of art. That was one of the best MCU trailers I've ever seen in its artistry and its emotion. They took the hard way forward. The easy one could have been we're recasting T'Challa and moving forward, but instead they decided to make that movie, that entire movie, around the death of that character. That's the road the movie decided to take, and seemingly it's looking like it's gonna be an emotional success based on that trailer. We'll see when that movie comes out, but that doesn't, again, like this shouldn't be the norm if you're also trying to do a game. It's like the game's a different meter. Like Iron Man died in Endgame, but that didn't prevent us from getting the Iron Man game from VR and also Iron Man showing up in Marvel's Avengers. It's like just because one character, something like an actor that played a character died in one medium means that how everything has to be treated. No, it's like I feel it's more disrespectful doing it that way. Like it's like, especially to what the potential of that character could mean. If only the tragic death of one actor could like completely upend everything regarding about that character everywhere else. Obviously, it's still like that passing is still so incredibly like. I remember when that broke in the middle of the pandemic. I was like, I cannot believe that he was diagnosed with that like in 2016, and he still did all the work that he could do.
That alone shocks me.
Yeah.
That he did so much real physicality and acting and was able to fight through that for so long.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if that had happened before Endgame even?
Oh man.
The process of that.
Yes. It's so unfortunate that Black Panther was one of the characters erased in Infinity War. Yeah. And then they bring him back in the next one. Now this happens. It's like, it's unfortunate they kind of have to like, they had the perfect time to write him off in a way. That happened, but obviously that was never in the cards, considering how big that movie was. So Black Panther is like one of the biggest successes in the world. I wasn't a huge fan of that movie initially. I liked it more the second time I watched it. Now analyzing why it meant so much for people. Obviously, the way it was going to resonate to me, a white-skinned Latino, was not going to be the same as like the black community that saw such a huge achievement being put on screen the way they did it. So yeah, I feel T'Challa, the character, I think deserves better than just having forever be tied to Chadwick in a way. Because how many times have we gotten characters have been recast before? It's like recasting is not it's not uncommon. Obviously this situation is a little shittier because of what happened, but I feel like at a certain point I feel we can move on in a way.
Yeah, I don't know. I think part of my perspective is too far outside of it, and maybe I'm not in the position to understand the gravity of how that works, and maybe there needs to be more of a respect across several mediums. I'm not really sure, because I feel like if anybody with more of an audience than me said the things that I say, people would be like, how dare you? And who knows where that lines up with the internet being the internet, and maybe my perspective is
I stand that what the movie is doing is perfect for what they're like. That's
absolutely.
the road they're taking, and I like it because now they're proving to me is like they can get something powerful out of it. So it's just I just don't want that sentiment to just be like in general.
So hopefully at least the game ends up being good and pays respect where it needs to be, and then moves on and does its own thing with its own identity.
Exactly. And the thing about it is, if this is early in development, when is this game even coming out? So like, maybe that's so.
At this point.
And it's from EA, so we'll see about that.
Okay. Well, all right. Number 4.
Yes. Ubisoft has reportedly delayed the next official Assassin's Creed game. Codenamed Rift, the game is the repurposed Assassin's Creed Valhalla DLC based on the assassin Basim, who gives Eivor the Hidden Blade, and the main setting is said to be in Baghdad. Unlike the last 3 of Assassin's Creed games, this new one is going to be a much smaller in scale, harkening back to the games of old, and it's meant to go back primarily to the franchise's stealth roots compared to the action RPG take on the franchise. The game was delayed out of the current Ubisoft fiscal year that only has Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope and Skull and Bones, and it's targeting a release window early into the 2023-2024 Ubisoft next fiscal year, around May-June of next year, marking the first official game release during the summer compared to the fall for the series. The live service Assassin's Creed game codenamed Infinity is also still in development, and it's allegedly next in the docket, where one of the settings within it is allegedly an Asian one. The future of Assassin's Creed is also scheduled for this upcoming September, where we'll probably get to hear about the details of all of this. So, we talked about Rift. If the Rift news broke one time, like in the middle of our recording.
I don't remember in the middle of all that hearing that it was actually delayed. What was it? When was it supposed to come out?
It was the rumor was this fall or early next year. So November, December, or January, or February.
So it got delayed out of it.
It got delayed out of the entire fiscal year, so that puts it after April. So that's why I said May or June. That's the interesting part, that it's like every Assassin's Creed we've gotten, Paul, has been November or October releases. All of them. They haven't, at least when they were coming out.
It's weird is how this game doesn't even have an official name, and they feel like they had to delay it. Because
Eurogamer.
They officially told us when it was coming out in the first place. For it to be delayed is kind of weird choice.
So what happened is that Ubisoft had its you know how they do like conference calls to tell about their financials and all of that. In a recent call, they delayed the Avatar game that was rumored to come out this year in November. In fact,
we said that last week, didn't we?
2 weeks ago, the Tom Henderson article that gave us the God of War rumored release date, when he said that he would think it was coming out on the week of the 11th, because that was when it was wide open, and then it ended up being November 9th. He had said that November 18th was when it was scheduled, like originally, and then that thing got delayed till late into the 2023-2024 fiscal year. So that was one delayed, and then they canceled the Splinter Cell VR game, they canceled Ghost Recon Frontlines, and then they delayed a smaller scale project. That's why the reports realized the smaller scale project that was delayed. They lined it up as this one. So,
well, I mean, it's a shame that it's going to be delayed, but that means hopefully more polish. And I really hope that this is that like spark for a lot of people to be like,
this is what we want.
That moment in SpongeBob where he tries to do something completely different and everybody hates it, and then he does one little thing right, and they're like, "That's it. That's what we've been waiting for." And then it finally clicks in his head. And I want that to be Ubisoft's moment, where everyone goes, "Yes, you did it. You brought the scope down. You like basically went back exactly to your roots, similar time period, similar look, similar area, and you made a solid self-contained narrative." And then they're like, "Oh wait, you like this? Let's make more of that with our buckets of cash." So that's just what I
think about it like this, especially if they're still barreling ahead to this Assassin's Creed Infinity live service thing. If Rift is well received and they see the scale of that thing, if they're planning on making all these different time periods within Infinity, that's kind of like the pitch of it, kind of like what we saw teased in Unity way back then
when they were trying to do Unity.
Yeah, and now this time, like, and Rift is supposed to be by much smaller scale, and people take to it.
Yeah,
maybe that gives them the template to be like, if we're gonna be doing this in this live service, maybe that's how we can put it here. This is the approach now. So people have to speak with their wallets right now. Valhalla, for some reason, is the best-selling Assassin's Creed game of all time. So,
honestly,
so it's like the strength of that series is like insane. Like I told you, the pull of Assassin's Creed. Yeah. Ubisoft doesn't have anything like it.
Granted, Valhalla had really great marketing across so much, so that makes a lot of sense for that. And
you know what? Also, because there hasn't been another Assassin's Creed game. How about that? Just has been accumulating sales over time, also.
And then what was I about to say? The fact that people needed something to play on their new PS5s and Xbox Series X's. Mm-hmm. Definitely contributed, because that's why I bought it. At first I wasn't going to, and then I was like, well, I got a PS5, I need some games for it, so I got Watch Dogs Legion and that, and I was like,
yeah, Watch Dogs you got earlier, and that's the thing. Watch Dogs you bought before the PS5. You were playing it on PS4.
I think wasn't that one of the ones where they let me do a cross save, where it was like, all right, you can play it when the PS5 comes out. So I like switched it over, tried it, and then I was like, this game ain't fun. But then Valhalla was like, I could maybe see it, and then eventually it just bogged itself down, as we all know.
Yeah, and then Immortals Phoenix Rising came out, and it was like a better version of that game. And
that was a whole experience. Yeah. It's funny because you have a sliding scale versus how good are the gods in your story, and one side is God of War and the other is Immortals Phoenix Rising.
Yes.
And because it's like, they're like, oh yeah, the gods are good people, they're really being victimized by this evil force, you got to go help them, be their champion. I was like, I think I know the gods too well for all that. That's a side note, but yeah, anyway, back on Ubisoft.
Yes. Yeah, it's like,
best of luck to
we'll see. In September we'll see how this looks. That's gonna be that's gonna tell the tale. I just hope you're inspired. Like, I love you. Like we mentioned with what we've been playing, it's like there's something about Assassin's Creed, when it clicks. So
it really does.
I want to feel that way about it. And with that, Paul, that's all the news for this week. And as for the game releases for the week of July 31st to August 6th, because we're finally in August, Paul, there's only 2 of note. South of the Circle comes out on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Switch and PC. And comes out on August 3rd, and it's a narrative adventure game set in the Soviet Union. And then there's Turbo Golf Racing, which is like Rocket League but with golf.
Interesting.
Yes.
Oh shoot, yeah.
Yes.
This actually looks crazy.
Yeah, and that's only on Xbox. So I would assume it will probably be on Game Pass. So.
Oh, that's kind of cool looking.
Yes.
All right, good for that.
I'm surprised Rocket League didn't inspire more car sports.
I'm kind of shocked too, because I mean, it worked really well with the main storyline. They have all the game modes. They even made a basketball version of it. So I guess they covered all of the big global things. And for whatever reason, somebody was like, golf. Yes. And it's funny because there's currently an anime going on about golf. And it's basically if you put like Mario Golf, but it's anime. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. There's a golf resurgence of silly things adding on to such a
golf is sport. Great. Just how can I say this?
Golf is great when you add fun to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like there's so much you can do with golf. I mean, like good Mario Golf is really good.
I mean, just look at what is it? The real life thing, Top Golf. I don't know if you have that out there. Where they basically make it into like a real life video game. They set you up on a platform and you hit the ball, and then based on the
definitely that's not here. No, that's not down here.
Yeah, it's a weird resurgence in the South of America, the North America side of it. But yeah, so gosh, there's not a whole lot, but we're gonna get a whole lot soon.
Exactly. So we're finally moving into that kind of season. So the summer's almost over. A very, very slow summer, but that has been great for replays. So, Paul, where can people find you?
as always, y'all can find me at Dork of Art on Twitter. That's where I post all my art and memes and everything else in between. And where can they find you?
They can find me at A_Segovia on Twitter, at Alejandro Segovia 93 on Instagram, and my written content at thecriticalcorner.com, where I will definitely transcribe the ranking that we did randomly in our what have we been playing. So Paul, it's always a pleasure recording with you. I'll see you next week. Everyone else, stay safe, stay cool with the heat still happening, and remember,
Press X
to play.
Good night, everybody.
Hasta luego.